Every time you spray a bottle of pesticide in your garden, 99% of it never touches the pest you are trying to kill. The Environmental Protection Agency confirms this. 99% misses. It lands on your soil. It drifts into the air. It washes into groundwater. You are paying for poison that does almost nothing. Now hold that number, because Americans spend $67 billion a year on pesticides. $67 billion for a problem that humanity solved for free for 10,000 years before 1945. And here is the contradiction that should stop you cold. Since 1945, pesticide use has increased every single decade, and pest damage has gotten worse. Over 500 insect species now show documented resistance to synthetic pesticides. The United States Department of Agriculture reports that 1/3 of the world's arable topsoil has disappeared in the last 40 years. You are spending more money than any generation in human history, and losing more crops than your great-grandparents ever did. Something happened in 1945. The gardening industry has never told you what it was. In 1534, a French explorer named Jacques Cartier sailed up the St. Lawrence River, expecting to find people barely surviving. Instead, his journals describe something that stopped him completely: villages, surrounded by fields of corn so tall a man could disappear inside them. These farmers own no spray bottles, no pesticide industry, no chemical inputs of any kind. They had 3 plants, and those 3 plants had sustained entire civilizations for 5,000 years. And they were not alone in knowing this. In 77 AD, a Roman scholar named Pliny the Elder documented a planting method that eliminated crop pests completely zero cost. No chemicals. His book survived 2,000 years. The method he described did not. In 1573, English farmer Thomas Tusser wrote about plants that keep pests from their neighbors. The same principle, documented across civilizations, proven across millennia, for longer than every modern institution you trust has existed. This was not folklore. This was precision biology, and it was erased, not by accident, but by economics. Here is what happened in 1945. World War II ended, and the chemical companies that had spent years manufacturing nerve agents for warfare needed a new market. Same chemistry, adjusted formula, new label, Dow Chemical, Monsanto, DuPont. They pivoted to pesticides, and then they did something far more damaging than releasing a product. Between 1950 and 1970, they became the largest private donors to agricultural university research in American history. They did not just sell chemicals, they redirected the entire curriculum of American farming toward chemical-dependent systems. Today, 4 companies, Bayer, Syngenta, Corteva, and BASF, control the global pesticide market. Their combined market value exceeds $200 billion. Every dollar of that depends on one requirement: that you keep farming in monoculture. Monoculture is a pest buffet, one crop, wall to wall. No diversity means no natural predators. The pest explosion that followed was not a natural disaster. It was the engineered consequence of a farming system that cannot function without chemical inputs. The 99% inefficiency. That is not a bug. It is a feature. It guarantees you come back next year. Companion planting was not outlawed. Something more effective happened. It was defunded, unstudied, untaught, made invisible. You cannot patent corn, beans, and squash growing together. So they had no reason to keep this knowledge alive, and every reason to let it disappear. The Haudenosaunee, the people Europeans called the Iroquois, fed millions across North America for 5,000 years. No chemicals, no resistant superbugs, no purchases, 3 plants. They called it the 3 Sisters, and in their own words, the 3 Sisters will sustain us long after the world forgets how to grow food alone. This was not tradition. This was an operating system. The corn grows tall and becomes a living trellis. It is the structural anchor for everything that follows. The The beans climb the corn and host, in their root systems, rhizobium bacteria, microorganisms that pull nitrogen directly from the atmosphere and deposit it into the surrounding soil. Free fertilizer, manufactured underground, permanently renewable, without a bag or a purchase. You just built a fertilizer factory operating below your feet. The squash spreads wide. Its broad leaves form a living canopy that starves weeds of sunlight, seals ground moisture, and physically blocks crawling insects at soil level. A pesticide spray degrades within days. The squash leaf returns every single morning, self-fertilizing, self-weeding, self-defending, asking nothing from outside itself. Modern science now has a name for what Pliny the Elder described in 77 AD. The chemical compounds plants release to confuse and repel insects targeting nearby crops. It is called allelopathy, the chemical language plants use to protect each other. The Haudenosaunee did not need that word. They built the system anyway. Here is how to rebuild it, confirmed by peer-reviewed research. Total cost near zero. The first step is to build the mound. Form a raised mound of soil 12 inches high and 3 to 4 feet wide. Full sun. Use what you have. You do not need to buy anything. Plant 4 to 6 corn seeds in the center. Water. Then wait until corn reaches 6 inches tall before doing anything else. That sequence is what most people miss. The corn must establish first. It is the structural anchor for everything that follows. Rush it, and the system fails. The second step is to activate the nitrogen engine. Once corn reaches 6 inches, plant pole beans, not bush beans, in a ring around the stalks, approximately 6 inches from the base. Pole beans climb. Their roots host rhizobium bacteria that extract nitrogen from the atmosphere and deposit it directly into the surrounding soil. This is a biological fertilizer factory operating underground, permanently, for free, without a single product purchased. The third step is to deploy the ground shield. 1 week after beans are established, plant squash at the outer edge of the mound. Winter squash, pumpkin, or zucchini. Allow it to spread outward without restriction. The broad leaves block sunlight from weeds, seal ground moisture, and physically obstruct crawling insects at soil level. A pesticide spray degrades within days. The squash leaf returns every single morning. The fourth step is to build the confusion border. Ring the entire bed with French marigolds. 1 plant every 8 to 10 inches. A seed packet costs approximately $2. You can save seeds from any marigold you have ever grown. In 2005, a peer-reviewed study confirmed that volatile compounds released by marigolds suppressed aphid reproduction by up to 100% within 5 days, not by killing insects, by chemically disrupting the signals aphids use to locate host plants. Your garden becomes invisible to them. The fifth step is to recruit a standing army. Plant dill, fennel, or yarrow near the bed and allow them to flower. Do not harvest them. Check your kitchen spice cabinet right now. If you have dill seeds, you have everything this step requires. Flowering dill and yarrow attract parasitic wasps, ladybugs, and lacewings. Predatory insects that hunt aphids, consume caterpillar eggs, and eliminate whitefly colonies. You are not repelling the enemy. You are building a permanent biological defense force that maintains itself without any help from you. The sixth step is to break the conditioning. For the first 2 weeks, do not intervene. You will see insects. The instinct to spray is not natural. It was built into you by decades of advertising that defined a healthy garden as one with no visible insect life. Every time you spray, you reset the ecological balance to zero, guaranteeing that next season you need more product, not less. That is not a side effect of pesticide use. That is the design. And if you have no yard, do not worry. Drill drainage holes in a 5-gallon bucket. Fill with soil, 1 corn plant in the center, beans in a ring around it, squash trailing over the side. Ring the bucket with marigolds. The bucket becomes its own closed ecosystem. The system does not require land. It requires sequence. This suppression is not ancient history. It is operating right now. In 2020, the European Union introduced a binding proposal to reduce pesticide use by 50% and mandate a return to ecological farming. Every year since, it has faced sustained, multi-million-dollar lobbying from Bayer, Syngenta, and allied agrochemical groups. Its targets have been weakened, delayed, and in several cases abandoned entirely. The science is solid. The political will keep getting purchased. You cannot patent nitrogen fixation. You cannot patent a marigold. You cannot sell a subscription to a system that sustains itself indefinitely. There is no recurring revenue in a garden that needs nothing after the first planting. That is the only reason this was forgotten. Not because it failed, because no corporation could monetize it. Here is what you need to understand. When you plant the Three Sisters, you are not just saving money. You are rejecting the premise. The premise that you need permission to feed yourself. The premise that you need a product to solve a natural problem. This is a declaration of independence from a system that has spent 80 years engineering your dependency on it. One bottle, one season, one purchase at a time. The Haudenosaunee did not ask permission to feed their people. Pliny the Elder did not wait for corporate validation. Your great-grandparents planted this way before an industry arrived to call it primitive and hand them a product instead. When food prices double, and the data says they will, you will not be standing in a garden center doing the math. You will be harvesting. That is not a gardening outcome. That is sovereignty, the kind that lives in your hands, your soil, and the seeds you saved from last season. Every bed planted this way is one less customer they will ever have. Drop this in the comments. Did your grandparents ever use a method like this? What knowledge is still alive in your family that no one taught you in school? They called it primitive to sell you something new. They defunded it. They buried it. But the knowledge survives in the soil, in seeds, in your hands. Plant it, teach it, pass it forward. This is not just gardening. This is resistance.